Recording in progress.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. So last session, I given overview on what is difference between Angular and Angular JS and what is difference between Angular and React. So today we will start working with, we can understand working with TypeScript. We will see the concept of working with TypeScript. In order to practice, in order to deal with Angular, you need a language called TypeScript. So why we need TypeScript as a language? Because I told you some drawbacks. Can you tell what are the issues with the JavaScript? What are the issues with the JavaScript? We discussed some points, right? What are those? JavaScript is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not strictly typed. What is strictly typed? I will tell you. JavaScript will not support all OOP features, object-oriented features. So JavaScript have a lot of problems. There are a lot of issues in JavaScript. So one major issue is JavaScript is not strongly typed. It is not strongly typed language. JavaScript is not strongly typed means strongly typed means data types. Actually, suppose we have a variable, some x. In this variable, we stored some value 10. Now, what is the type of x? Type, data type, integer, right? Data type of x is what? Integer. Now, into this, I store some name. It is a string type. So, is it valid to store a string in an integer type? No, but it is allowed in JavaScript. In JavaScript, it is valid. So that means JavaScript is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not strongly typed means data types it cannot restrict. In order to restrict the data types, you need to write logic externally. So that is the meaning of strongly typed. Majority your languages, Java, .NET and other C, C++, they are strongly typed. Once you define data type, they will not allow any another type. But JavaScript is not like that. It will allow. That is one problem with JavaScript. JavaScript is not strongly typed. Next point, it is not strictly typed. It is not strictly typed. Strictly typed, so actually it is explicitly strict. It is not strictly typed. That means it is explicitly strict. What is meant by strictly typed? Strongly typed means data type. Strictly typed means if a developer is writing program without following some standards of program, some programming languages allow that. Even you don't write according to the standards, they will allow. For example, suppose I define like this, x equal to some 10. That means we have a way, variable X value assigned as 10. Now, have I declared this variable? Is that variable declared? No. Without declaring a variable, you are trying to use a variable. Is it valid? But in JavaScript, it is valid. In JavaScript, it is valid. That means if a programmer is writing logic without following the basic standards, then also it will work. That means actually, as per programming standards, every variable must be declared and used. So in your Java, .NET, C, C++, other programming languages, if you don't declare a variable, you cannot use it. But in JavaScript, it will allow. It will allow. So we have to externally put that rule. We have to externally tell that don't allow such things. Otherwise, it will allow. For example, I will show you. See. Just example I will show. You just observe that. Later, how to practically work, you will learn. Huh? For example, I am showing you a simple concept here. Suppose I am writing some JavaScript in this x equal to 10. And I am printing the value of x. So this is a simple option. You can see when I am using x equal to 10, it is working fine. And here I am not declaring any variable called x. I am directly assigning some value into x. I am directly assigning some value into x without declaring. It is allowing. That means it is not strictly typed. I hope you learned JavaScript. In JavaScript, how to turn on strict mode. To turn on strict mode, in the beginning, you have to use strict. You have to write use strict. If you write use strict, now JavaScript will be in strict mode. In strict mode, it will not allow to violate the programming standards. That means now JavaScript is in strict mode. And you see now, it will not allow this. It will not allow this. It's not working. You can see the error. Inspect. You can go to console. In the console, you can see the error. Error is nothing but it says X is not defined. So this is a very basic thing. I hope you learned in JavaScript that JavaScript is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not strictly typed. And we have to turn on the strict mode. We have to turn on the strict mode by using use strict. Use strict. So is JavaScript having strict mode? Is JavaScript having strict mode? Yes, it is having. JavaScript is having strict mode, but it is not implicit. It is explicit. Explicit means you need to turn on. But majority of your languages are internally strict. That means you don't need to turn on any strict mode. By default, they are strict. So JavaScript is not strongly typed. JavaScript is not strictly typed. It is explicitly strictly typed. That is another problem here. That means if I write like this is valid. So you have to turn on strict mode. How to turn on strict mode? By using use strict. By using use strict, you have to turn on the strict mode. So second problem, if about JavaScript is it is not strictly typed. In many interviews, they ask this. What is strongly typed? What is strictly typed? What do you say? Strongly typed is about data types. Strictly typed is about the programming rules, programming standards. I just showed you declaring variable. Like that, so many programming rules will be there. If you don't follow the rules and write the program, your program will fail. Right? That means I just showed you one example, declaring. Not only declaring, like that, so many programming rules are present. Those all rules you have to correctly follow. So strongly typed is about data type. Strictly typed is about rules, the programming rules and the programming standards. That means a developer have to write as per standards, as per the rules. That is another important problem in JavaScript is JavaScript is it is not an OOP language. It is not an OOP language. It supports only few features of OOPs. It is not an OOP language. JavaScript is not an OOP language, but it supports some features of OOPs. Now tell me, what is the advantage of being an OOP language? JavaScript is not an OOP language, but it supports only some features of OOP. Now the question is, what are the advantages of being an OOP language? What are the features of OOPs? What are the features of object-oriented programming? First one, code reusability. Am I right? Code reusability, code extensibility, code separation, code level security. That's what you call abstractions and all. Na? That means advantage of object-oriented programming, it is more reusable, it is more secured, it is easily extendable, it can be easily maintained and testable. Maintainability, testability, extensibility, reusability, separation, all these you can achieve by using OOP. JavaScript is not a complete OOP language. So it supports some features like code reusability, code separation, but many features are not supported. Due to that, it is not easy to extend. It is not good in security. So code level security, extensibility, there are some issues in JavaScript. So JavaScript is not object-oriented programming, but JavaScript supports some features of object-oriented programming. So if it is not object-oriented programming, so it is hard to extend. So it will not support code level security. All these are the problems of JavaScript. These are all the issues we are facing with JavaScript. As a developer, the problems with JavaScript are so many. Some important problems I told you. So what are the issues? Strongly typed, not strongly typed, not strictly typed. It will not support all features of OOPs. It's not an OOP language. Extensibility, security level issues will come. They are all the problems with JavaScript. So, but we don't have any another language which can take the role of JavaScript. Browsers can understand only one language, JavaScript. So in web, there is no other language. Only JavaScript can manage everything. Browsers can understand, browsers can handle JavaScript only. There is no other language. That is the reason we don't have a choice. We have to use JavaScript only in spite of lot of problems, because there is no alternative for this. There may be alternative for other languages, but on web there is no alternative for JavaScript actually. So to overcome these problems, what happened is, to overcome these problems, actually Google started Google started a language called EtScript. EtScript. Actually, Google developed Angular. I told you Angular.js. When Google developed Angular have to use JavaScript only. So they are not satisfied with JavaScript. That's the reason they started developing a language called EtScript. Why they started developing this EtScript? They started this EtScript in order to overcome the problems of JavaScript. They thought that we will design this EtScript and we will use this for Angular, so that Angular will not use JavaScript anymore. It will take help of EtScript. But what happened is, they started this EtScript for which technology? For Angular. For Angular. But what happened is, Microsoft is already having a language called TypeScript. Microsoft is already having a language called TypeScript. That means Google started developing a language called EtScript. And similar to that script, there is a language called TypeScript. Already Microsoft have it. Microsoft have that language from 2003 onwards. They were having that language called TypeScript. Actually, Microsoft have a technology. Microsoft have a technology called .NET. And in the .NET technology, they have a language called C#. They have a language called C#. It was actually developed by Anders Hazelberg. He developed a language called C#. He is the architect of the language called C#. This C# is used on internet, web applications. When it is using for web applications, they were facing problems with JavaScript. That's the reason they developed a language called TypeScript. So TypeScript is also developed by Anders Hazelberg. He developed TypeScript. He is the architect of the language called C#, and he is the architect of the language called TypeScript. And TypeScript was doing very good in the place of JavaScript. And Microsoft is already using it. Microsoft already was using it. So actually, you can see, this is Anders Hazelberg. This is Anders Hazelberg. He is the architect of a language called C# in .NET, and he is the architect of TypeScript. He designed the language called C#, and he designed the language called TypeScript. And TypeScript have all the abilities which JavaScript don't have. TypeScript is having all the abilities which JavaScript don't have. Then, but it is not available to others. Nobody knows that TypeScript is there. TypeScript is internally used by Microsoft. Even Microsoft people who are learning .NET like technology, they don't know that there is TypeScript because it was internally used. Now what Microsoft people have done is, they saw that Google is trying a new language called EtScript, and that EtScript was similar to TypeScript. Then they asked Google team, Angular team, why you are developing? Already we have it. Then Google and Microsoft, they had a meeting and their technicians sit together. They checked the TypeScript language and Google was very much satisfied. Why? Because they were trying that language which is already there. Then Google said that, okay, we will drop this X script. We will no more continue because it's time waste. Already it is there. Then we will borrow from Microsoft. Then they asked Microsoft to make this TypeScript open source so that everybody can use it, because Microsoft haven't made that as open source. TypeScript is there, but it is not available to general people. Then what they have done is, so later from 2014-15 onwards, they made TypeScript as open source so that it is available to everybody. Once it is available to everybody, Angular started using this TypeScript. Angular started using TypeScript. So you are learning a technology which is supported by two big players of software industry in the world. One is Microsoft, another one is Google. So you are learning a technology supported by two major players in the software industry, Microsoft and Google. The language used by Angular is belonging to Microsoft and the technology belongs to Google. Angular belongs to Google and TypeScript belongs to Microsoft. Even if you have to later learn React or any other concepts, then there also TypeScript is used. TypeScript is used. So TypeScript is actually used in the place of JavaScript. Now the question here is, why Google is interested in this TypeScript? Why Google is interested in this TypeScript? What are the features? Actually, TypeScript is strongly typed. TypeScript is strongly typed. JavaScript is not strongly typed. TypeScript is strongly typed. TypeScript, it is strictly typed. It is strictly typed. Same like other programming languages. It is strongly typed. It is strictly typed. And the TypeScript, it supports, it is an OOP language. Not supporting, it is a perfect OOP language, object-oriented programming language. That means all the features of object-oriented programming are available with TypeScript. TypeScript is an object-oriented programming language. And very interesting point is, actually it is more better than other object-oriented programming languages. Why? Because actually TypeScript, it is built in TypeScript. TypeScript is built in TypeScript. Generally, Java is not built in Java. .NET is not built in .NET. They have to take support of another language to build them. Because I hope you learned object-oriented programming in .NET, Java, or other technologies. If anybody asks, what are the drawbacks of OOP languages? Tell me some drawbacks of OOP languages. You learned any OOP language? Right? Java, .NET, C++, any OOP language? Do you have any idea of an OOP language? Then what are the drawbacks of OOP languages? No drawbacks, only advantages only you learn. Because if they say drawbacks, then you will say it is not a good technology. Yeah? So that means they never told you about drawbacks, only advantages. OOP languages, no problems. So many problems are there. So many problems are there. Actually, object-oriented programming languages, some issues I will tell you actually. What are the issues with object-oriented programming is object-oriented programming support will not support low level features. They will not support low level features. If they don't support low level features, they cannot directly interact with hardware. They cannot directly interact with hardware. They need more memory, more memory. They are very complex and they are very heavy. They are very slow. These are all drawbacks of OOPS. These are all the issues of object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming is not great every time. There are a lot of issues. That is the reason we don't prefer object-oriented programming everywhere. Right? For example, we have a air condition, washing machine, microwave oven, or refrigerator. We don't have a Java program inside them. You know, you can control the AC speed, AC compressor on off, fan speed, fan direction through a remote. That means there is some software running inside it. Am I right? Do you know that software is not a Java or .NET software? That software is an embedded system, right? It is by using languages like C. Right? That means a Java program you cannot put in refrigerator or washing machine or microwave oven or air conditioner because they need more memory to operate. They are very slow. So there are so many problems with object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming cannot directly interact with hardware. So with remote, you have to control hardware. That means with remote, you can change fan speed. With remote, you can change the orientation of swinging of fan. That means you need to control the hardware directly, which your OOP languages cannot do. So that is the reason object-oriented programming have a lot of drawbacks. So many issues. They are not good everywhere. And remember, to interact with hardware or anything, they need support of a low-level language. They need support of a low-level language. But interesting about TypeScript, TypeScript can directly interact with hardware. It's not like other OOP languages. Because TypeScript is built with TypeScript, means it can directly understandable to operating system. An operating system can directly understand TypeScript. That is great because other OOP languages cannot do that. They can directly interact with operating system. They can directly work with operating system. That is the advantage of TypeScript. So TypeScript is completely built in TypeScript. What is advantage of completely built in TypeScript? It can directly interact with the hardware. It can directly interact with hardware. It needs less memory. It needs less memory. It is faster and it is lightweight. All these are the advantages of TypeScript. And very important, don't underestimate TypeScript as JavaScript. That means TypeScript is not for Angular. Angular people are using TypeScript. Actually, individually, TypeScript can build large scale applications. You can individually use TypeScript for building large scale applications. That means just like Java, C# and other languages, TypeScript is separately used for building large scale applications. That means don't think that TypeScript is only for Angular. TypeScript is being used by Angular. It is not for Angular. It individually can use huge. Sit here. Sit here. Right. So technically it is lightweight, it is faster, and it have less memory. Now clear? Right. So technically it is having lot of features when compared to other OOP languages. So TypeScript can individually, that means it is used in building large scale applications. This is very important. So don't think that TypeScript is a language which is used for Angular, because Microsoft Technologies uses TypeScript as a separate language for building very large scale applications also. Only the point is Google, Facebook, even because React belongs to Facebook. Angular belongs to Google. These two people also depend on TypeScript now. So they have to use the language TypeScript as language. So individually TypeScript can work, not only with combination of Angular or React. So individually we can build large scale applications using TypeScript. So that is all the advantages of TypeScript. But one problem here is, the problem is nothing but, so here very important, browsers cannot understand TypeScript. Browsers cannot understand TypeScript. So browser can understand only JavaScript. Browsers cannot understand TypeScript. Browser can understand only JavaScript, nothing else. In that case, TypeScript need to be translated into JavaScript. We need to translate TypeScript. TypeScript is translated into JavaScript. That means finally our projects will be using which one? JavaScript. But we don't directly use JavaScript. What we do as a developer, we write program in TypeScript. This TypeScript program is translated into JavaScript, and JavaScript is used by our project. But in companies, we don't prefer directly writing JavaScript. Why we don't directly write JavaScript? Because as a developer, whatever features I need, they are not provided by JavaScript. I want reusability features, I want extensibility features, then they are not supported by JavaScript, then I will take help of TypeScript. TypeScript is written, which is translated into JavaScript, and it is given to application. So finally, every web application have to work with JavaScript. That is the reason without JavaScript, you cannot call yourself as a developer for the software companies in the current generation. Because majority of your applications are web applications only. You are learning Java, .NET, PHP, Python, everything is web. It will be like a joke if you tell that I don't know HTML, JavaScript, but I am Java developer. People will laugh at you, right? People will laugh at your words if you tell that I don't know HTML, JavaScript, but I am Java developer, .NET developer. People will see you like a joker. That means you are a software joker, professional software joker. Without knowing basic skills, you are saying I am a technical developer of Java, .NET. That is silly thing, right? This is how currently people are there. That means majority of people come say, I am Java developer, I am .NET developer, but I don't know HTML, JavaScript. Pity on you. How you will work for a company? So no chance, right? You cannot call yourself .NET, Java, PHP, Python developers without the knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You are not suitable as developer in real-time projects at all first. So that is the reason these are primary basic. Even you are using TypeScript, this TypeScript cannot directly run on browser. We have to translate this into JavaScript. So then why developers don't write directly JavaScript? Because if a developer writes anything in JavaScript, so many issues will be there. So instead of facing those problems, directly use TypeScript and translate it. For example, just like suppose our prime minister went to Russia and he need to speak to the Russian president. And you may ask, like, both can speak in English because it is an universal language, both can speak in English, but Russian prime minister will speak in Russian, our prime minister will speak in Hindi. So they will be translated to Russian, Russian will be translated to Hindi. Why? Because if our prime minister speaks in Hindi, that means he is very much native in expressing everything. In English, he cannot express in the same way how he can express in his native language. Then what they will do, they don't take risk in talking in English. They will simply talk in Hindi because they can express well in Hindi, which is translated into the people what they can understand. Same concept. Why developer is using TypeScript? He can directly use JavaScript because JavaScript is not convenient for him as a developer. Then he will use TypeScript. Because developer needs security, developer needs reusability, maintainability, testability, TypeScript provides, and he will use it, which is need to be translated into JavaScript. That is the point. Actually, without TypeScript also directly you can build applications with JavaScript and Angular. Earlier we were doing like that, but now we are not preferring this. We just prefer using TypeScript as a language. So understood the basic features of TypeScript. So what are the features of TypeScript? TypeScript is strongly typed. Strongly typed means data type restrictions. TypeScript is strictly typed. Strictly typed means it follows the coding standards. All. It supports complete features of OOPS. Another one, it is built in TypeScript. What is advantage of building a language in itself? So that it can directly interact with hardware. It can be faster. It uses less memory. It can easily understandable to operating systems. So whether means when compared to other OOP languages, this is more better because other OOP languages drawback, they cannot directly interact with hardware. They are heavy. They need more memory, right? So technically, that is the advantage of TypeScript. So that is the reason in Angular, you have to learn first TypeScript. Let's see how this works, how we can start working with the TypeScript. For that, first important, you need to know the environment. How do we set up? Let's see. Actually, to start with TypeScript, to work with TypeScript, you need to understand another very important concept, that is TypeScript architecture. To practically start working with TypeScript, you need to understand the TypeScript architecture, how actually TypeScript works, what it contains, how it works, that we will see now. We will see the basic architecture of TypeScript, right? First point, you understood why developers use TypeScript. So developers use TypeScript to overcome the issues of JavaScript. But actually very interesting point is just a few weeks back, 3-4 weeks back, Microsoft have made a successful trial run of running TypeScript directly in browser. This is a very big revolution in software industry in the future generation. They just made a trial run success, but it is not completely done. They are still working on it. And just officially Microsoft announced that TypeScript successfully it executed in browser. That is great revolutionary point. That means in future JavaScript will disappear now. if this happens. But lot of complications are there. They have to address all the issues. It will take a lot of time. They just started it and they are successful. That means it will take time. We are waiting, and as developers we are very much interested in that, right? If it happens, then there will be no JavaScript anymore. That means everybody will learn HTML, TypeScript, no more JavaScript. But it will take a lot of time. It is not so simple that a technology will come and directly work. Why? Because one of the main problem with web is browser issues will be there. Every browser have a different engine. They can't work properly. In one browser it will work, in another browser it will not work. Issues will be there. They have to address all these issues. But this is very important. Technically, how TypeScript works, let's see how TypeScript is going to work. What is the basic architecture of TypeScript? Let's see. Actually, in the TypeScript architecture, this is the basic architecture of TypeScript. These are all the components of TypeScript. What are these? How they work? We will see detailedly now. To practically work with TypeScript, first you should know how TypeScript actually works. What is the architecture behind the TypeScript? Let's see what are the concepts of TypeScript, what actually TypeScript comprises of. See, at the bottom, you can see TypeScript is having a core compiler. At the bottom, it is having a core compiler. In the TypeScript architecture, we have a core compiler. Now tell me, as a developer, what is the role of a compiler? Compiler compiles, huh? Huh? What is the role of compiler? Compiler is a translator, na? It translates the high level language code into machine code language, right? Compiler is not compiler. Huh? Compiler is not compiling. You have to tell all this, right? So compiler is a translator which translates a high level language program into machine code language. What is an interpreter? Interpreter will be, it is also a translator, but interpreter translates line by line and compiler translates all lines in the program. JavaScript actually interpreted and compiled. JavaScript supports both techniques, interpreted, compiled. Line by line translation will happen, compiled also. And TypeScript is compiled. JavaScript is interpreted and compiled. JavaScript is interpreted and compiled. Line by line translation happens and compiled. Do you know any JavaScript compiler names? JavaScript compiler, one of the popular compiler, V8. V8 is a JavaScript compiler. We have a compiler Babel. Babel is a JavaScript compiler. Wherever JavaScript is used and compiling is required, they use compilers. Babel, V8, these are all JavaScript compilers. Actually, JavaScript is interpreted and JavaScript is compiled. JavaScript is compiled and TypeScript is only compiled. TypeScript is only compiled. And what is the role of core compiler? What is the role of compiler? Can you tell what happens in compiler? Compiler translates. While translating, what it will do, can you tell those points? Checks programming code. Yeah, see, generally what a compiler does, a compiler checks whether the keywords you written correct or not. A compiler checks whether the syntax you written correct or not. A compiler checks whether the blocks are correctly started and ended or not. Am I right? A compiler will check whether the output and input are correctly configured or not. A compiler will check whether the data type you declared and value you assigned are same type or not. Understood? Na? That means inside compiler, so many things will happen. Inside compiler, so many things will happen. When you are learning a language, you will learn compiler. But if you get a chance to learn what is inside compiler, that is very good. That means if anybody says Java compiler, .NET compiler, now if you know what is present in compiler, that is very, very good. Because at experience level, questions are asked like this. That means they will ask you what is a compiler at fresher level. At experience level, they will ask you what is inside the compiler. This activity managed by whom inside compiler. That is what difference between fresher question and interview and experience. Actually, freshers are asked about concept and experienced people are asked about architecture behind that concept. That means for a fresher, they will ask what is compiler. And for experienced people, they will ask how this compiler works. What are the components in this compiler? So if you are having some experience, you are attending interviews, you need to be strong in architecture of every concept to crack interview. Because for experienced people, interview will be on architecture. For fresher, interview will be on concept. Right? If you know architecture and concept both, then you can crack any level interviews. Generally, freshers know only concept. They don't know detailed architecture. If you spend some time in learning the architecture also, it is very, very good for cracking interviews and resolving real-time problems also. To resolve real-time problems, you should be very strong in architectural concept. So this architecture is important. Actually, what is the purpose of core compiler? Actually, core compiler translates the TypeScript code into machine code. Understood? The TypeScript code is translated into machine code. In this, lot of components are present. You can see inside this core compiler, you can observe there are so many files. There is core.ts. There is program.ts, scanner.ts, parser.ts. TS means TypeScript. Checker.ts, emitter.ts. Like this, we have some files. Actually, these files are present inside compiler. They are responsible for handling different. For example, do you have any idea of a language like C? C programming, any idea? In C, what is an input function? Input is scanf. Output is printf. So who is responsible for managing input? A scanner. And you see there is a scanner in the compiler. If anybody asks what is the role of scanner in compiler? Tell me. What is the role of scanner in a compiler? It is responsible for handling input. In a programming language, input is managed by whom? Scanners. In TypeScript, input is managed by whom? Scanner. Scanner is responsible for managing input. And you see, emitter is responsible for managing output. Output is emitted. Emitted means it is thrown outside. So emitter is responsible for managing output. Scanner is responsible for managing input. Parser is responsible for Parser is responsible for converting one type to another type. Converting one data type to another type, that is managed by parser. Checking the data types is done by checker. What is the data type? Strongly typed, I told you. That is done by checker. And you see there is program.ts. Program.ts, it is responsible for checking the syntax and the blocks. That means where program start, where program ends. So is that syntax correctly configured or not? This all verified by whom? Program. That means the program structure is verified by program.ts. If there is a problem, semicolon missing, curly brace missing, block missing, then it will report error. That the structure of program is verified by program.ts. And the keywords are verified by using core. That means you are writing if, else, switch, case, for, while, do while. All these are keywords. It will verify the words that you are using are reserved keywords or not. This is all done inside compiler. That means TypeScript have a core compiler. In this core compiler, there are so many files. One is core.ts. What is its responsibility? So it verifies the keywords. It verifies the keywords. What is the purpose of program.ts? Program.ts, what it will do? So it verifies the structure, program structure. It verifies the program structure. We have parser.ts. It is responsible for translating, converting, right? Converting one type to another. So another one, checker.ts. It is responsible for type checking, for type data type, right? Data type checking. So we have scanner. What is that scanner? Scanner.ts. It is responsible for handling what kind of activities? Input activities. We have emitter.ts. What is its responsible? It is responsible for handling, what is it? Output. A programming language needs all this. Every programming language have these actually. If you learn Java or .NET, in your language also you might have learned JVM, Java Virtual Machine, or CLR. For .NET people, common language runtime. Actually, if anybody asks what are the components inside JVM, that means inside Java compiler, what are present? Inside .NET compiler, what are present? Then you must able to tell them as an experienced person. Fresher, okay. We don't expect so much in depth from a fresher level. But an experienced person must have that complete knowledge. We are learning Angular from very base level to extreme experience, because in this class, not only you people, several people are attending this batch who are already developers in companies. And they have to crack interviews at very experienced level. So we need to discuss every concept in depth according to architecture also. That is the reason here little bit you need to concentrate on in-depth concepts, right? Generally for freshers, these are all not required. For a fresher, we simply say TypeScript compiler translates into JavaScript. But for experienced level, we need to learn all these. So we need to know all these options. Understood the purpose? Right. What is the purpose of core compiler? Verifying keywords, verifying program structure, verifying handling input and output, checking the data types, translating one type to another. This is all managed by whom? Core compiler. Next important, after the core compiler, you have Stand-alone compiler. One more compiler is there. Why you have two compilers here? There is another compiler called standalone compiler. We have a core compiler and we have a standalone compiler. You see, there is another compiler here. There is a standalone compiler. Standalone TypeScript compiler. We have a core compiler and standalone compiler. Why two compilers? What is the role of this standalone compiler? Actually, very simple, because I told you that TypeScript is compiled. It is successful. That means there is no error in program. Now, is this program understandable to browser? Then why? Why it is not understandable to browser? Because browser can understand only. Then who will translate to JavaScript? Standalone compiler. That means we need two compilers. One for checking your language, another one translating into JavaScript. So what is the role of a standalone compiler? So yeah, standalone compiler tsc.ts, that is the file. And what is the purpose of standalone compiler? It transcompiles. It transcompiles TypeScript program into JavaScript. That is the purpose of that. That means whatever TypeScript program you written, it is translated into JavaScript. First, what you written in TypeScript is not directly translated to JavaScript. First, it will be compiled. It will verify there are no errors in the program you written. If your program of TypeScript is error-free, then only it is given to standalone. What standalone is going to do? It will translate into JavaScript. That is what it will do. Suppose somebody written a speech, just like I told you, somebody written a speech. After writing the speech, will Prime Minister directly will read that speech? No. First, there will be someone who will verify all the speech content are correct or not. After they certify it is fine, then it is translated and given to them. That means first we have to verify the problems. After that, translate into their native. That is what actually we need. We need two compilers. One is standalone compiler. Another one is core compiler. Standalone compiler. What is the purpose of standalone? Translating into TypeScript into JavaScript. That means it runs on only that machine. In which machine you installed, in that machine it will work. I hope you know, you are a software programmer. You know standalone applications, na? Right? The common basic knowledge everybody have. Standalone application means an application runs on the machine where it is installed. That is a basic common sense, right? So everybody knows that, right? What is a standalone compiler, right? Generally, standalone means it is installed and executed on the same. That is, this is general core compiler. Another one is standalone. We have standalone compiler. Next important here in the compilers, after these compilers in the TypeScript architecture, there is a language service. Now tell me, as a developer, what is the meaning of service in software programming? What is a service in software programming? Anything else? What is a service in software programming? Actually, in software programming, service is a predefined business logic. Service is a predefined business logic, means it contains predefined data and functionality. It contains predefined data and functionality. You have to just use it. Ready-made data and functionality. For example, I will tell you a simple one. Suppose you are designing a registration form and you will put that registration form in a website, registration or login form. What is problem with registration login forms on internet? The problem with login and registration forms on internet is those forms are used by robots, and the robots automatically register in your website. They log in into your website and create lot of heavy problems on your website. They create unnecessary burden on your website. So you designed a registration form. Not only humans, robots will register. On internet, so many robots are there. So those robots will register in your website. They log in into your website. That means they are unnecessarily increasing burden on your website. Then to prevent robots to register or log in, to prevent robots, we use a concept called CAPTCHA. You know CAPTCHA? Why CAPTCHA is used? To verify whether the user is a human or robot. How it will verify? It will see you, then it will smell you, then how it will verify? How it will verify that you are human or robot? According to your mouse move, according to your keystrokes, it can verify. That means robots have a certain pattern of mouse movement. They have a certain pattern of keys. Then it can verify. That means CAPTCHA is an artificial intelligence program. It is kept in your forms so that it will verify whether the user who is using the form is a human or robot. That is what the full form of CAPTCHA. You know full form of CAPTCHA? Completely automated test to tell humans and robots apart. That is the full form of CAPTCHA. Automated test to tell humans and computers apart, robots apart. That is what the full form of CAPTCHA. Right? That means now if anybody asked you, okay, you learned HTML, Java, .NET. You can design a registration form. Now, if anybody asked you how you will write code for CAPTCHA, you can't write. Why? Because it is an artificial intelligence program. That means you have to learn AI. You have to learn artificial intelligence to write CAPTCHA-like program. Then how we will put CAPTCHA without writing a program? Because CAPTCHA is provided as a service. CAPTCHA is provided as a service. That means several people build CAPTCHA and they will give the CAPTCHA to you. What you can do, you can just inject that into your form and you can use it. You don't need to write. So CAPTCHA is a service. Service means what? It is already written. It is already functioning. Just you have to inject in your application and use it. So when you are developing an application, everything you don't need to develop. When you are developing an application, everything you don't need to develop. Everything you don't need to develop, right? Usually when you are developing the application, everything you don't need to develop. One second. Right. So when we are developing application, everything we don't need to develop actually. Everything we don't need to develop. Actually, what we have to do, we need to build only what is needed. We need to build only what is needed. And next, what we have to do, Anything additional we have to import and inject into our application. These are called as what? Services. These are called as services, right? Now the technical point here, I will show you here. For example, suppose I want to use CAPTCHA in a project. Suppose you are using Java.NET projects in that you want CAPTCHA. Then usually what happens here, I will show you Google have a reCAPTCHA. This is Google reCAPTCHA. If you want CAPTCHA, this is Google reCAPTCHA. You can see a Google reCAPTCHA. This is Google reCAPTCHA. That means Google provides this CAPTCHA. What you can do as a Java.NET developer, you can come here. You can search for your technology related library they will give. You have to download, you have to import, and you have to use it. For every technology they will give. And see what they are saying. They are saying that CAPTCHA is a free service. It is a free service. What is meant by a service? Means they have already written it. Just you have to inject and use it. So this I told you just to explain the concept what is a service. Understood? So in software programming, what is a service? Service is a predefined business logic. That means why we need this here. In TypeScript, what is this language service? Language service is nothing but it will provide all the functions, all the keywords, all the library that TypeScript needs. TypeScript needs some functions. For example, I want to write a loop. Which function is used? For. I want to write a iterator. For, in, for, of, for, each. These all functions are present where? These all functions are present in a language service. So what is TypeScript language service? TypeScript language service is nothing but, so language service. What is the file name? You can see the file name. What is it? Services.ts. What is the purpose of language service? It provides predefined functions and values required for TypeScript. Whatever functions and values required for TypeScript, they are provided by this language service. That means actually service is a predefined business logic. It is a predefined business logic, so which you can inject and implement in any application. So we have two compilers and one language service. So what is core compiler? Core compiler is checking all the problems in your code. What is standalone compiler? Translating the TypeScript code into JavaScript. And what it is language service? It will provide all the functions and values required for your TypeScript. That is third one. Next important, in TypeScript, there is a TS server. TypeScript server. Now tell me, what is the role of a server? What is the role of a server? In software development, what is the role of a server? Server purpose is hosting. One keyword is hosting. That means your applications are hosted on server. After hosting, server manages request and response. Am I right? That means what is the role of server? Hosting application, managing request and response. So TypeScript programs are hosted on a server. On that server, they are compiled. And from that server, they will respond. That means we said that TypeScript program will compile. TypeScript program will transcompile. TypeScript program will take input and show output. All this it will manage on a server. So TypeScript programs internally run on a server. Internally run on a server. What is the role of this server? The role of server is actually, so TS server, TypeScript server, actually server.ts. What is the role of server? The role of server is hosting. Hosting is one important. Another one is request and response. That means programs are hosted, are compiled and managed on server. They are managed on the TS server. So TypeScript programs are hosted. Hosted means they are loaded there, and they are compiled there, and they are processed there, and they are managed in both input and output. Everything is managed on a TypeScript server. So in the TypeScript architecture, you will have the servers which will play the key role in processing and handling input and output. Managing your request, sending you a response, everything is managed by TS server, TypeScript server. Another very important, you see, there is a VS shim. There is an VS shim. Next important, VS shim. Actually, shims.ts. Have you ever heard about shimmers? Shims in any programming language? Shimmer. Actually, Java, .NET, all these have shimmers. You may not know that much in depth about that, but they have. Anybody, any idea? Shim? No? You never heard about shim? No. Actually, I will tell you one simple one. General, that shim is actually derived from that. You have seen, you see prawns, you know prawns, you know shrimps, you know lobster. No, you never saw lobster. Huh? You heard prawns and shrimps. You know shrimp. Actually, shrimp will be like this. Shrimp and prawn look same. Shrimp and prawn look similar. Huh? You don't know difference, huh? You eat prawns? No. You don't eat prawns. At least you know there is an animal called prawns. Prawns, heard about shrimp? Shrimp, prawns belongs to same. The difference is shrimps are gender neutral. Shrimps are gender neutral. If any technology is saying that I am platform neutral, that is because of shrimps. Is Java platform neutral? That means cross-platform. Is Java, will it run on every operating system? Yes, that is because of shrimps. In a language, there will be streamers. What these streamers will do is, actually, shrim means this will not be in Java. Because some people are excited. This will be in Java. No? This will not be in Java. I am talking about the word stream meaning. Right? That means if any technology claims that it is platform independent, that is because of streams. There is a component called stream, which is going to translate the code which is suitable for every operating system. Every operating system. Actually, Google, suppose I say Java shrimp, yeah. You have Java shim. You can see there is a library called shim in Java. Actually, it is used in APIs. Huh? APIs, because APIs are platform neutral. They can run on every operating system. Java, .NET, everybody uses it. This shim is used in every technology that says it is platform neutral. If you are learning Java, .NET like technologies, you can search, you can explore, and you can know about them in their official websites. But generally you don't need, because internally that is managed. So what is the purpose of stream? What it will do is, it makes a stream, it makes the TypeScript programs cross platform. Understood? It makes the TypeScript program cross platform. That means it can run on every operating system. TypeScript programs can run on every operating system because of this stream. Actually, what happens is, you return TypeScript. This TypeScript program is translated. After translated, that means it is compiled by core compiler. After that, it will generate an, actually we call it as IL code, intermediate language code. It will generate an intermediate language code. This intermediate language code is understandable to only operating system, certain operating system. On which operating system they compiled, it is understandable only to that operating system. This is taken by shim, and it is translated into managed code. Managed code is the code which is understandable to every operating system. Every technology does in the same way. So every technology does in the same way. First they compile, but that compiled code is not understandable to every operating system. They will take help of a shim, which will translate that into managed code. Managed code is the code which is understandable. Managed code is suitable for all operating systems, for all operating system services. If any technology says that it is platform independent, that is because of shim. Actually, shim works very internally. They will not tell you about shims. They will tell you about the component which uses shim. Like they will say API, right? But internally the API is managed and translated and handled by shims. It is a library used by every technology to make their code platform independent, right? So that is the major concept of shims. You have a shim. This is a shim. So that is, and this shim converts that into which code? Managed code. Managed code means you have two language services. One language service platform dependent. Another language service platform independent. This shim will translate that into platform independent. VS is nothing but actually Visual Studio. We call as Visual Studio. That belongs to Microsoft, right? You don't need to worry about that VS. Just shim and that managed. So this is basically how the TypeScript works. And editors, editor is nothing but, editor is the location where we write the programs, compile the programs, and run the programs. That means TypeScript supports different types of editors. So in the TypeScript architecture, you need to understand one more. What is it? You need to understand managed language service. Managed language service is nothing but it is the service suitable for all operating systems. So actually it is cross platform. You can say platform neutral also. Platform neutral. All this is important. That is the basic architecture of TypeScript, how TypeScript actually works. So we should know the architecture of TypeScript to handle interviews, because in interviews lot of questions will be related to architecture at experience levels. So you need to understand that. I hope everyone is clear, right? You will learn two things: what are the features of TypeScript and what is the architecture of TypeScript. So in TypeScript architecture, what is the role of core compiler? Core compiler role is verifying the errors in the program. After that, translating that into